પણ હવે ચાલુ થઈ જાય છે મારે.
Good afternoon, a very warm and hearty welcome to all of you. Today, I, Dr. Jyoti Dhokle, take this immense opportunity on behalf of Sri Balaji Sansthan, Devgaon Rajas, Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce and Science College, Devgaon Raja, to welcome all delegates and participants in this one-day national webinar on the topic Indian economy after COVID-19 pandemic challenges and opportunities, which is organized by Department of Economics in collaboration with IQAC. Friends, it's my proud privilege to let you all know that today's inaugurator, Honorable Principal Sir, Dr. J.B. Zadhav, Sir, is the inaugurator of today's session. So I extend warm welcome to him. Today's keynote speaker, Honorable Dr. Vibhuti Patel Ma'am, former professor, Advanced Center for Women's Studies, School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, is also with us. I extend my warm welcome to you, ma'am. I also extend my warm welcome to Honorable Dr. Medha Tapiawala, Professor, Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy University, who is with us as a resource person of Technical Session 1, and its topic is New Normal in Post-COVID-19, Some Economic Observations. I also welcome Honorable Dr. Suchita Krishna Prasad, ma'am, Professor and Head of Department of Economics, Elphinstone College, Mumbai, a second resource person of technical session, and the topic is Indian economy post-COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. I'm very delighted to tell you all that we have got overwhelming response from all over the country. So once again, I welcome all the participants in this webinar. To welcome our guest is our Indian culture. So for this, I would like to request Dr. Jnaneshwar Gore, coordinator of today's webinar and head of Department of Economics, to propose his welcome address. Please, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Sri Balaji Sansthan Devgaon Rajas, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Sri Balaji Sansthan Devgaon Rajas, Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce and Science College, and as a coordinator of this one-day national webinar, myself, Dr. Jnaneshwar Gore, hereby welcome the distinguished speakers, delegates, and students who have joined from different parts of the country to grace the occasion of national webinar titled Indian Economy After COVID-19 Pandemic, Challenges and Opportunities, organized by the Department of Economics of our college. Corona has made a huge impact around the globe within a very short span of time. No economy, no person, no corporate, no product, in fact, nothing spared by pandemic of novel coronavirus originated in Wuhan province of China in late 2019. Its massive and fast spread all over the world has compelled all think tank busy round the clock to find some quick innovative solutions at present and also cope up future conditions as well. Our discussion here is limited to its impact on economy, resulting in opening a new era in world economy where India can play a leading role. The large number of economic activities like education, traveling, entertainment, games and sports, tourism, religious and non-religious, political and social meetings and gatherings stopped unexpectedly by the outbreak of coronavirus. people across the world are bound to start thinking healthcare, lifestyle, food habits, sanitization, cleaning, social distancing. Thank God, the advancement in technology make it feasible to a large extent. It seems that the biggest victim of coronavirus is the economy, that is livelihood of people and not the life of people. Every fall in economy can be seen as a new opportunity. A large number of workers have lost their jobs due to economic lockdown. There is a big opportunity in India for labor-intensive industries to expand and exploit the world market. COVID-19 has generated a huge demand of personal hygiene and protective equipment world over. Also, there is a high demand of paramedical and cleaning staff. Government is expected to make some reformative measures to so the industries working is in this sector can expand and also new enterprise may come out. It is this growth potential that has already brought several new brands into the market, and there will be a lot of investment in this arena. It is not only during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also hygiene, which will be continue to be one of the most rapidly growing industries in the future. This is a great lesson in understanding one aspect of operations that was previously given little thought by the most businesses. Things were being begin run with focus only on the graphs and marketing. Time has changed now, yet adversity can also be a great opportunity. War not only destroys, but also creates opportunities for those who are resilient and keen to rebuild. Today, a war against coronavirus has brought us to similar challenges and opportunities. Against this backdrop, we have assembled here to know more about the topic with many eminent speakers lined up for today's webinar. With this brief background, I would like to welcome our keynote speaker, Honorable Dr. Vibhuti Patel ma'am. Also, I want to welcome the resource person of first technical session of this webinar, Honorable Professor Medha Tapiawala ma'am, and this resource person of second technical session, Honorable Professor Suchita Krishna Prasad ma'am. Also, I welcome all delegates and students who have joined from different parts of the country to grace the occasion of the national webinar. I'm sure that you all will feel enriched with knowledge after the completion of this event. I welcome you all once again to the webinar and hope that you all will have a great time ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to request. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to request Dr. Eknath Bhalerao, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to introduce today's guest of honors.
On behalf of Sri Balaji Maharaj Samsthan, Deolgao Rajas, Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce and Science College, Deolgao Raja, I welcome all the dignitaries in one-day national level webinar on Indian economy after COVID-19 pandemic changes and opportunity. I am here to introduce the resource person. At the outset, I will take this opportunity to introduce Honorable Professor Vibhuti Patel ma'am, the keynote speaker of today's webinar. Honorable Professor Vibhuti Patel ma'am is former professor, Advanced Center for Women Studies, School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Professor Vibhuti Patel ma'am superannuated from Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai on 13th of June 2020. Honorable Professor Vibhuti Patel ma'am worked as Advanced Center for Women's Studies, School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences from 1st July 2017 to July 2020. After her superannuation from SMDT Women University, Mumbai on 13 June 2017. Honorable Professor Vibhuti Patel ma'am is PhD in Economics from University of Mumbai. She was awarded visiting fellowship to the London School of Economics and Political Science from Association of Commonwealth Universities UK. In 1922 to 1993, she has authored and co-authored 12 books, edited and co-edited 9 books, and contributed over 100 papers as chapters in various books edited by others. She has also authored and co-authored 34 research monographs and reports. Her research paper, comments, commentaries, and review have been published in national as well as international academic journals. For EPG Pathshala UGC New Delhi, she has been a paper coordinator for women's and economics and recorded her contribution over there. Besides these, there are many awards and nominations on her credit for excellence in academic and social contribution. I heartily welcome you, ma'am, in this national webinar on behalf of Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce and Science College, Devaraja. Now I am going to introduce Honorable Dr. Megha Tapiwala, ma'am, the resource person for technical session first. She is going to talk on new normal in post-COVID-19, some economic observation. Honorable Dr. Megha Tapiwala is professor at Department of Economics, Mumbai University, Mumbai. Honorable Dr. Megha Tapiwala pursued her PhD in economics from University of Mumbai in 2006 and post-graduation in economics from University of Mumbai in 1990. In addition to this, she also pursued certificate course in marketing management from Sasmira Institute of Textile, Worli, Mumbai in the year 1986. Honorable Dr. Megha Tapiwala published her books entitled Banking Reforms and Productivity in India, is quite innovative contribution in her discipline. Moreover, there are 7 research papers in journal, 40 research papers in edited books, and 20 research papers in national international conferences on her credit. Dr. Megha Tapiwala delivered 7 innovative talks in national international conferences and participated in 8 syllabi-oriented workshops. I welcome Dr. Megha Tapiwala on the behalf of Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce and Science College, Devaraja. Now we have Honorable Dr. For the resource person for the second technical session. She is going to talk on Indian economy. Associate Professor, Elphinstone College, Mumbai, Honorable Dr. Sucheta Krishna Prasad, ma'am, pursued her PG and MPhil degree from the University of Mumbai, and in the year 2003, she also completed her doctoral degree from the same university. Dr. Sucheta Krishna Prasad, ma'am, participated more than 40 national international conferences, seminars, and workshops. She also delivered innovative talks on the important events in her discipline. In addition to this, she participated in training program on enforcement of the labor law at Yeshada, Pune. I welcome Honorable Dr. Sucheta Krishna Prasad, ma'am, on behalf of Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce and Science College, Devaraja, in this webinar. Finally, I welcome all the delegates and the dignitaries who joined this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we are going to have a very knowledgeable feast. And for this, I would like to request our Honorable Professor Vibhuti Patel, ma'am, to deliver her keynote address with respect to this webinar. Please, respected ma'am.
So, good afternoon, friends. First of all, I would like to thank Balaji Sansthan Devgad Raja's College, Venkatesh College of Arts, Commerce and Science, the patron, Shri Vijay Singh Ji, Principal Dr. Gajanan Jadhav, Dr. Jnaneshwar Gore, who has been in touch with all of us, all the speakers for the last 1 month, Dr. Megha Tapiwala and Dr. Sucheta Krishna Prasad. We are the colleagues and also long friendship we have had. And Dr. Jyoti Dhokle and Eknath sir, and all the participants from all over India. Our today's presentation is basically an overview of the situation. Oh, excuse me, I want to share the screen. I want to show my PPT.
Yes, madam, yes, you can share.
I am prevented. Okay.
Yeah, no,
okay. So it is about the macro analysis and the sectoral analysis of the Indian economy after COVID pandemic, challenges and opportunities. So we all know that in last 4 months, the kind of we have experienced 4 stages of lockdown and now 3 stages. Now this is the third stage of unlock. And India has a very long history of this kind of epidemics and pandemics. We used to have smallpox epidemics in the 19th century. We used to call them Shitalama, and currently now people in the villages and the tribal areas, they are calling it as the Corona Mai. So a lot of historical parallels we have had. Plague, pandemic of plague, we have experienced continuously in the, say, from 13th century till the 19th century, as late as in 2014. In 1994 we had plague in Surat, and similar patterns had emerged, but they were localized. And epidemic of tuberculosis, epidemic of say Ebola virus in Africa, or epidemics of SARS in pandemic of SARS in Asian countries. So there have been public health emergencies in the past also, but this time it is unique because it is global. All 192 countries in the world are affected, and massive, and that is happening post globalization period, where there was a maximum movement of human beings globally. Emigration as well as migration and immigration were happening in a big way, and it has impacted world economy. It has impacted our country's economy, society, and also, as Dr. Medha Rapiawala is going to speak on the new normal. So new normals have come up in all sectors and all situations in our lives. Government structures, they are finding it very difficult to cope up with the enormity of the problem. In the month of March and April, we were overwhelmed by the public health emergency and its implications on the economy because of the COVID-19 induced lockdown, the fiscal deficit, and the kind of predictions that are made about the slowing down of the economy. It is one, but still we are more concerned. Its fiscal deficit is okay. We have to be worried, but I think more worrying situation is that of human miseries and the lives are being lost, and a variety of paralysis which is generated, like economic paralysis or a social paralysis. There is a tremendous staff shortage so far as COVID warriors are concerned, because 50% of the posts in the public health sectors have not been filled because of the zero budget policy which India adopted after 1991 new economic policy, where the more leeway and more facilities were given for the to the public private health sector, because 65% of the health services are provided by the private sector. And the moment COVID-19 pandemic struck and the lockdowns were generated, they were the first one to close down their services. So nursing homes and clinics and hospitals, even when people were ready to pay, the services were not available. So slowly and gradually they are opening up because of the new directives which the state governments are giving this thing. And another thing is that MG Narega has emerged as a major savior, and we will see in what way creatively in a post-COVID period we can use this massive contribution that the government of India has made. Another very important macro level and micro and meso level things that have happened is a license permit Raj, which we abhorred. And in fact, that was the major argument for getting liberalization of Indian economy. But license permit Raj has come up in a massive, with all vengeance under the lockdown. So you can't say that private sector is better than the public sector. Both private sectors and public sectors both have shown rent-seeking behavior, whether it is the doctors or the police or the hospital staff or the gatekeepers or ration shop owners, those who own the vehicles, whether there's a three-wheeler, four-wheeler, truck drivers, private, all of them are taking advantage of the situation. And so many horror stories are appearing in the regional language as well as English mainstream newspapers. We have seen that in response to this major health emergency, the government of India came up with the relief package and economic package of 20 lakh crore, which is a which is claimed to be at 10% of GDP, and they say it is it is not a relief package, because there is a major difference, because all those trade union activists and the mass organization, they say it is an economic package, it is not relief package, because most of the focus of this package is about the rejuvenation of micro, small and medium industries, addressing the question of migrant workers. For the first time, migrant workers have caught the imagination and caught the central attention, because of 3 crore people, they moved from one place to other, and that too without any public transport. And the kind of horror stories and kind of documentation that has appeared both in the electronic media and the print media, those pictures and videos we have seeing what kinds of, first time migrant workers have become the face. They have become the face, and there is also recognition that of the contribution of migrant workers. They are not on the burden on the urban economy, but they are the backbone of the. So there is this paradigm shift in looking at the migrant workers, from seeing them as a, or like if you go by the Lewis model, they were treated as surplus labor, but they are not. They are the major backbone of the urban economy. They are the contributors to the growth of the country. Another thing is that Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana talks about is the agriculture infrastructure. The crisis has shown that the major limitations of the agrarian infrastructure, especially the social infrastructure, currently when massive exodus has taken place from the urban areas to peri-urban and rural areas, and workers have gone back to their extended families. What's going to be the education of their children? What about the detection centers? What about the health facilities? What about the containment zones? We don't have those things in the rural areas. So that creation of that, so that in future, like even the question of detection centers or question of contagious diseases hospitals, most of them are in the cities. So we need those kind of infrastructure, health infrastructure, education infrastructure, and also skill infrastructure, because we are talking about future of work, and new types of skills are required even in the post-COVID period when all these industries start operating. So preparing the workforce for that, and now with thanks to Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, we have a considerably educated workforce. The younger generation of workforce is educated up to 7th standard, 12th standard. Sometimes some have even gone to the colleges, and that is the recent skill mapping which the government of Bihar and government of Jharkhand did, which shows that so many of these workers who have gone back to the villages, they listed themselves for MG Narega, and they were given the card of unskilled workers, manual workers. They refused because they said they had done worked in the factories. They were working for Swiggy, and they were working for running Ola and Uber. So they had skills and this thing, and they are also techno savvy. And they can handle the internet technology, this thing. Then other investment which the government has done is on the coal mining and also defense manufacture, which has nothing to do with the corona tragedy. Okay, so what we see is that main thing which the state governments are talking about recently is that the increase in the borrowing limit for the state 3 to 5% has been highly objected by all state governments, because they are at the front line of fighting COVID pandemic and also facing the repercussions of the lockdown. So it is, and another directive with the central government has said that spending will be only, the government spending will only be allowed in the PM's Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana, and also all those schemes which are announced under Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana. So Ministry of Finance has decided to put on hold all new schemes till 31st March 2021. So that is also going to affect a lot of social sector support which the state was providing. Another thing is that increase in the public health expenditure and better and creating support system for the creating structures, mechanisms, and facilities to be better prepared for the future pandemics. I think that for that also the allocation is made. So all district hospitals, infectious diseases hospital, block and public health laboratories, block level laboratories, insurance coverage for the frontline health workers up to 50 lakhs. I think they have been announced, and 8,100 crore stimulus packages given. But in this also, the major focus is on the doctors and super specialists who are actually not the frontline workers. Frontline workers are the nurses and ayabais and sanitation workers and Anganwadi workers and ASHA workers and also school teachers in the government called schools, because they are the ones who are distributing PDS. Okay, these are the people who are affected most by the COVID virus. And among the sanitation workers, we have heard that more than 30% of them have been infected by coronavirus, and fatality rate is also very high. Allocation of 15,000 crore for health-related measures to tackle COVID-19 is highly inadequate. The World Health Organization has requested all nation states to at least allocate 10% of GDP. Okay. United Nations and the Sustainable Development Goal have asked the nation states, and India is also signatory to SDG, that public health budget must be 6% of GDP, which comes to 12 lakh crores. Okay, while if you compare that with the 15,000 crore, it is peanuts. It's just nothing. It's a drop in ocean. Now we also need to focus on the gender differential impact, because everybody is saying that corona, even in the beginning, it was told that corona doesn't differentiate between people, but corona social determinants of corona are differential so far as whether you are rich or poor, whether you are from excluded community, you are socially excluded, you are facing this gender differential, your age, everything matters. So the differentiation is taking place because of the socio-economic and cultural setting in which COVID-19 infection takes place. Okay, so we have to, and another very important term that we need to understand is about this who everybody talks about social distancing. Now, social distancing as a term has a totally different connotation, because if you have read Baba Saheb Ambedkar, he has very clearly explained that how Varnashram system, which differentiates between on a caste line, social distancing is expected. So the upper caste is expected to maintain social distance from Shudras and Atishudras, and even the Avarna, they can't be, even their shadow cannot touch the Savarna. So we have this kind of a very painful history and painful legacy of social distancing globally also, because of this history of apartheid, history of racism, where the white population always maintained social distance from the colored population. So there is a lot of this thing. Even the WHO has said that we should not use this term social distancing. We should talk about body distancing or physical distancing, and we should talk about the social solidarity. This is the time of health emergency and the major crisis where social solidarity becomes very important. Solidarity between the government and the civil society, solidarity between the NGOs, solidarity between the elected representatives and the constituency, and solidarity among the citizens of a various socio-economic background, I think is a very important. UN Women had also said that there is a shadow pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic is playing havoc with the societies and economies. At the same time, shadow pandemic of gender-based violence is also creating tremendous this thing, and it is not much talked about. Everyone, if you read Economic Times, if you read Business Standard, if you read all the international economists and all, everybody is talking about health emergency, but nobody is talking about what kind of gendered experiences that have taken place over last 6 months. In India, COVID-19 came in at a national level in March. Okay, but in Kerala it was in January, and world over it was December onwards that we have seen so many countries have been affected. And what we have seen, that there is an intensification of already existing inequalities in the labor market. Labor markets are not free. Okay, there is no ceteris paribus in labor market. Labor markets are socially constructed. There is a intersectionality of caste, class, race, religion, ethnicity, and your location, whether you are in rural area or tribal area or urban area. So I think let us understand that, and that COVID-19 has affected labor markets in a different situations and different geographies in a differential way. Intra-household power relations during the stay-at-home and lockdown matters. They have also like care, who is majorly involved in the care work, okay, they are basically women or women of the household. The stress level which is faced because of the multitasking, domestic violence, why domestic violence cases globally have gone up 3 times. And in India also, National Commission for Women and the State Commission of Women are talking about that. Then the sexual violence, child sexual abuse, increase in child labor, trafficking of women and children, the kind of reports that are coming up after 120 days of lockdown, they are quite mind-boggling. The personal care and the frontline health care services to the family members, which is provided by women, the question of food security, question of shelter for the homeless people, because most of the workers, we have 94% of the workers in India, according to ILO, and 13% of the workers, according to latest NSSO labor force participation rate data, they are in the informal sector, and they were thrown out of their home way back in March because they could not pay the rent, because they had not received so many daily wage earners, casual workers, they had not waged, they were not able. And by April, I think there was a generalized pattern of informal sector workers being homeless. Shelter homes were very limited, and they started the whole new process called reverse migration started happening. This crisis has also brought in a major role of the unpaid care work that is being done. Data from the rapid assessment survey show that in all countries, women are more likely to see increase in both domestic work and unpaid care work. Unpaid care, child care work, unpaid adult care work, and unpaid domestic care work, and unpaid elderly care work, that majorly falls on women, while the men do sometimes like a shopping and the playing with the children. When it comes to frontline health workers, we have seen that 9 lakh public health workers, they are registered with the government, and 10.3 lakh accredited social workers we have, ASHA workers, out of which day before yesterday 5 lakh of them had gone on a strike because they are not given wages, they are not given personal protection equipment, they are not even given hand gloves, they have a ordinary mask made by themselves. So and there is no support system which they are being, and though they are working for 12 to 16 hours a day. In the rural areas. In the urban areas, we have 27 lakhs Anganwadi workers. They are running the ICDS centers. And currently, because ICDS centers are closed due to COVID-19, midday meal program is closed, they are roped in for other activities regarding detection or detection of COVID virus and detection of taking samples for the COVID test. So what we see is that women as healthcare providers, they are 70% in the front line, and they play a very important role, but we have completely neglected them. Same in the formal sector, we see work from home has increased women's work, because along with housework, child care, homeschooling or supervision of the homeschool, this thing, and when women are home, there is a lot of demand on everybody makes demand, and all family members are home, so their workload increase drastically. And also it also generates a lot of psychological, emotional, and physical violence. But still, women in the formal sector are economically secure. At least they have 6% of these women. They are in the organized sector. They are protected by the labor legislation. The most of the media coverage is mainly about the middle class families and what have been the advantages of COVID virus in terms of bonding and mutual care and concern and family eating together at the home and this thing. But the major problem that we are facing is that of women in informal sector. According to ILO, informal workers in India, I'm not talking of only women, men and women, 1/3 of them are own account workers. 30% of them are working in informal employees in the informal sector, like a micro industry, small industries, medium industries, which don't come under the labor laws because they don't employ more than 10 persons to avoid the labor laws. And there is a big, around 18% of workers are unpaid family workers. So the only head of the household is counted as a worker, rest of them are not. So pandemic has dire implications on a most vulnerable population like women-headed households, people with disability, pregnant women, homeless people, socially stigmatized transgender community, sex workers, prisoners and inmates. And now for the first time, like National Commission for Human Rights has come out with a special task force of how the people who are in various shelter homes and institutional centers like a prison or this thing. What should be the norms that the country has to adopt so far as their safety and security is concerned. The migrant workers, about that, so many states have come up with the best practices. The Kerala's example has been emulated world over, and also the UN, ILO, all of them, and WHO have admired the way Kerala has tackled the problem of this thing. And Kerala is not a rich state, okay? Rich states are Maharashtra, Gujarat, Punjab, and Haryana, but still what they could not do, this state, Kerala has done. But the universalization of PDS that has come up as a macro policy, very important, that no conditionality of eligibility criteria or a domicile. So you need not show your ration card or Aadhaar card, but you can get it. And also importance of rapid need assessment studies, and also coming up with a correct database so that we can make targeted interventions. According to 2011 census, there are 12 crore migrant workers, out of which 33 crores are women, 3 crore 9 lakhs are women. And we have seen, we all are familiar with the kind of crisis that it had created because of the reverse migration. And first time, now we have come up the kind of a MG Narega program we have in the villages. Similar kind of a program now the state is thinking of starting for urban employment because so many migrant workers have gone back to their native states. And we have seen also massive people-to-people solidarity by the non-state actors like NGOs, CBOs, SHGs, ASHA workers and all. So I think state has also come up in a big, like so many African countries or the Latin American countries are continuously running soup kitchens and community kitchens. I think same thing we will have to do, because the hunger in urban and the rural areas is massive. And we have a surplus crop, like our FCI godowns are full with the grains. And this year, luckily, the only sector which had a massive production and a positive growth rate was the agrarian sector. Like 11% Rabi harvest we had, and also we had 2.2% overall growth, while when the industrial sector growth was either zero and at times negative also. Another issue that has become very important part of a discourse is about the unpaid care work. So the general understanding of the economists that whenever the market economy is closing down, economy has halted. That is wrong, because you have a care economy which is not monetized. And I think we have to understand and the importance of the care economy. And the unpaid care work done by men are doing 32 minutes per day in the rural areas, and women are doing 291 minutes. Men in urban areas are doing 29 minutes of unpaid care work, while women are doing 312 minutes of unpaid care work. These are the data from ILO. And then the question of reproductive health issue, which should be treated as an urgent essential service. It's not only, so there is a global demand, because the maternal mortality rate, child mortality rate, neonatal mortality rates have gone drastically up, and there are no data. Only 24% of the pregnancies during this last 4 months have been reported. Only 17% of the neonatal, the newly born babies have been registered. Vaccination program has stopped. The tetanus injection, which was given, the antenatal care services have stopped. And that's why the concentrate, how are we going to deal with such a major percentage of population which is left out. Coming to the agrarian sector, we have seen that the people are feeling quite optimistic. Economists are talking quite enthusiastically about the Rabi crop we had in March, and also the Kharif crop, monsoon crop is going, India is going to have a good monsoon. These are the predictions. But what we see is that even in the agrarian sector, currently the focus, the 30% of the agrarian workforce is with the agriculture. But even in the rural areas, there are so many non-agricultural activities that are taking place. So many micro and small industries are in the rural areas. I think their rejuvenation also will require, and that's why there are predictions that only 30-35% migrant workers will come back to the respective cities, like the 8 states where they were working in the metropolis. Many of them will get absorbed, and so many states have also started doing the skill mapping of the migrant workers who have gone back. then the forest economy, we have 200 varieties of forest produce, and 11% of India's population, tribal population, depends on the collection on non-timber forest products. And that has been affected because in March, lot of all these collections were over. They had to be given to the government bodies. TRIFED, we have a Tribal Cooperative Marketing Development Federation, and the lockdown stopped that, and now they have asked for like the collection of tendu leaf, bamboo, mahua, sal, lac, chironji, tamarind, gum, karanj was done, and they could not find the market due to lockdown, and the value of this 200 varieties of non-timber forest product is around 20,000 crores. And the tribal communities have asked for a reduction in the tax on tendu leaves, and the GST on all these products should be waived this year, but it has not happened, and the negotiations are still on. Even women as healthcare seekers, they have been completely neglected. We have seen the so many horror stories about people going from one hospital to other hospitals. Even those who had non-corona patients, they also suffered the most because every health facility was converted into corona. So many states converted maternity wards into COVID patients wards. So imagine, so many women had to deliver on the roads or in their homes and all.
Connectivity थोड़ी down है. Sir,
Right. Hello, madam. Your voice is not audible. आवाज येते का? Hello, madam.
Do what different sections of population they need in terms of this thing. Education sector, I think, which is very important, and the new education policy has already come. Only 8% of school children have internet-based facilities. Only 20% of students, even in city like Bombay, who can have access to smartphone. In that situation, I think we need to use more and more of a FM radio or television channels and use it for education purpose. Violence against women, as I told you, the data are extremely disturbing, and that's why now the state has also started working with the NGOs, and they have also come up with the helpline, and these helplines are inundated with a lot of panic calls, and that's why we need to, it has emerged as an important implication, very, very important implication, this thing. Reduction of social inequality in the care services has emerged as a major demand, and government bodies as well as the civil society organizations are talking about. In today's context, some of the industries which are going to play a very important role is about the safety and personal protection equipment industry, as the Dr. Gore also told us. Water and sanitation become very important under the context of COVID virus. Labor helplines are required, not only about the data on migration and in-migration and reverse migration, but also about the wage denial, layoff, termination, workplace discrimination, police brutality, and sudden and forceful eviction by the landlords. The state has to come up with the two central demands that have emerged. So far as the macroeconomy is concerned, one is a demand side, because everybody talks about the supply chain. Okay, supply chain has Atmanirbhar Bharat is addressing supply chain. But if all these things, even if the supply chain is robust, if people have no purchasing power, those who have majority of Indian population has lost out everything. There is a massive sale of land and gold, and even furniture has been going on in the working class areas, both in urban and rural areas. Study by the Makam Mahila Kisan Mazdoor Sangatna in 18 states during this lockdown is showing that people are becoming assetless. In this situation of assetlessness among the low middle class as well as the working class, I think wage and cash transfer. So there is a global demand. And even in India, those who were earlier talking only about the market fundamentalism, they have also started talking about basic minimum, the basic income approach that the state should adopt. And computation by Dr. Mahendra Dev, from director of IGIDR, and also Dr. Rangnathan, ex-governor of RBI, also shows that even when we give the basic minimum income to the working class, then according to their computation, it should be 4,500 per month. the social organizations and trade unions are demanding 7,500 per month. But according to the computation by Dr. Mahendra Dev and Ranganathan, it shows that it comes to only 2% of GDP. So which is not a big sacrifice that the state has to make. And that's why it is very important. Another thing is the urban housing. We used to have a state supported urban housing till the 70s. When the builders lobby took over, we saw that none of the low cost housing or a low rental housing were emerged, were taken up as a task force. So now currently all the state governments are talking about affordable rental places for the urban working class, for the migrant working class. That is should be the state's responsibility. And the smart city program, like we have identified 44 cities for smart city program, which is a heavily funded budget, which talks about only technology and flyover and surveillance technology and CCTV camera. I think the smart city budget has to create the safe accommodation for the migrant workers. That is a very important concern that has emerged after the COVID crisis. So the universal access to healthcare services, 6% of GDP, protection services to deal with the violence against women, safe transportation for the migrant workers, limited and the kind of work which the NGOs, CBOs, CSOs, women's rights organizations, SHGs have done with the limited resources, just out of courage of conviction. They were the ones who transcended coronaphobia and really worked with the people. So I think that the appeal to the Fortune 500 companies and also the government expenditure, gender responsive participatory budgeting, which organizations like Center for Budget and Governance are talking about, they are also demanding that state can do much more. So along with the human rights organization, the state needs to adopt human rights oriented protocols with regard to people in prison, administrative migration center, quarantine center, confinement camp, people with disabilities in institutions, psychiatric facilities who are at a higher risk of COVID-19 contagion due to confinement condition. So I think it's very important that we don't just focus only on economic aspect, but along with the economic aspect, the question of transparency, democracy, targeted intervention, and also respect for the human rights concerns, I think it becomes very important. I have given some references of the studies done over last 4 months by the research institutions, individual scholars, and also those who were involved in the relief operations. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. It was very useful and valuable information. It was a wonderful gift of knowledge for all of us. So thank you once again. Thank you for accepting our invitation and removing your time for our webinar. Thank you very much. Now, before we are going to start technical session, there are a few guidelines for participants. Participants are requested to put their questions in the chat box, and few questions only are going to be selected because of time constraint. Next is that the feedback is mandatory. You all are requested to, after this webinar, please fill your feedback form. Now, we are going to start our technical session first. So for this, I would like to request Honorable Professor Medha Tapiawala ma'am to enlighten us on the topic New Normal in Post-COVID-19, some economic observations. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me here. This is, I think, for the second time I am with Venkatesh College, and this was a pleasure. Even last visit was a real pleasure for me. And I appreciate the efforts which are taken by the college, by the staff, by principal, and especially Dr. Gore, to have these kind of workshops and share information not only within Maharashtra, but I think across the world. I'm very happy that when I was informed that there are many people who are attending this workshop, webinar from various parts of India as well as world. I really thank all of you to be here to listen to all of us and share our information which we have given this opportunity to us. I think can I share my screen so that I'm able to make the PowerPoint presentation, madam?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's
Before
visible.
beginning, it is okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vibhuti madam, for giving us such a insightful information about labor, about gender, about health workers. I mean, what not was included in this? It was a very lucid and very informative information. Thank you so much. And I think I can also depend on some of the information which you have given while explaining, while talking about something which is called a new normal, the new term which has come into existence. Uh, the title which I have selected is New Normal in Post-COVID-19, and I wanted to make some economic observations to it. Now, the reason why I'm making economic observation is new normal is not confined only to economics. New normal is actually existing for all the dimensions. It is for politics, it is for social services, it is for geography, it is for sociology, it is, I suppose, the kind of philosophy or kind of ethics which we were believing earlier right now would have some kind of new normal even to it. But being a student of economics, I would like to bring forward some of the economic observations to it. So let us see how economic observations are being made for facing this pandemic, which has started, which is originated from Wuhan, and it is not restricted only to Wuhan, but within first 2 months, it has affected almost 188 countries of the world. Now, when pandemic was started, what we understand is the process of development is that it's not a spontaneous thing. It evolves over time period. Now, at the background where world was and where we are looking world to go to is actually the bridge between what was and what is. All right. So let me explain you what background we were having before. We are having a total world population of almost 7.8 billion. We've already had 18 wars in last 100 years. As you rightly said, there were 14 epidemics. Few of them were considered also as pandemic, wherein additional to war, people have died. Only in wars, the people died were somewhere like 189 million people worldwide have died. In 2018, there was a global impact of war, which said that around dollars 14.1 trillion, which is 11.2% of total world activities, has actually just gone, you know. So 1.3 billion people are poor people. Now, why I am mentioning these are poor people? Because condition of these poor people, these vulnerable people, would be little more critical than that of people who have got some resources with them. Now, imagine out of this 1.3 billion extremely poor people, 1 billion are children. Now, as a result of which, what is happening is the combating, the mitigating of these kind of effects becomes little restricted in this. It would take almost $60 billion annual to end extreme global poverty, which is existing. Imagine now this extreme global poverty, if we want to eradicate, we will have to take away money from 100 richest billionaires in the world. Now, let us come to the new normal, what has happened today. If the $60 billion would not have spent for poverty, would have been spent for something else. Now, today, in this time, almost 9 trillion dollars are spent only for combating the effect of the pandemic which is happening. You see, now in new normals, what has happened is this. If you see the picture, you would see that what has happened as considered as a new normal. You would never find Gateway of India, which is right side corner on the top, is the picture which was shown as a scanty. There is no individual at present visiting this particular monument, which is a great monument in Mumbai. If you see left-hand side corner, peacocks in Mumbai was a very, very rare phenomena many years back. Now, I'm saying many years back, few days back, but recently we found a peacock visited Gaudevi area, which is one of the most crowded area in Mumbai where we live. Now, the middle picture speaks more than 1,000 words, I suppose. Mona Lisa wearing mask means it is mandatory to fight this pandemic that one has to make one change in the outfit, and that is a wearing of mask. Now, what is the process of development which we were anticipating? We were expecting when we were moving from 2019-20 to 2020-21 that we want to have progress in terms of economic development. What progress? Progress in living standard, progress in literacy, income level, infrastructure for health, increase in the longevity. I mean, these are some of the indicators of human development we all know. But additional to that, what we were also seeing for development is stability. We were also seeing that this stability would happen only when there are no shocks. I mean, if I take you just 6 months back, in the month of December and in the month of January, we realized the process of recession was there. And every country in the world was trying to defeat this recession and come out of it. India was no different from the other countries fighting to this recession. In fact, India was actually trying to look out something new, some kind of stimulus package with which we could have fought the kind of recession is there. Additional to that, what has happened is now there is this shock which has existed, which is due to the pandemic. Now, when this shock has been faced by entire world, what has happened to everybody started saying that, oh, it's a gloomy picture. Oh, it's a very bad situation happening outside. People can't go out. There is no social gathering. There's a issue in my mental health, and people have lost their jobs. Of course, we are going to come to it that what kind of this new normal is going to be there in the future. But before going to the bad news of new normal, I would like you people also to understand that there was some good news of new normals too. Now, when I say that this normal has got good news, I am not saying that this kind of viruses would bring any kind of good news. But what I mean is, it's a byproduct of the lockdown, which started because of the pandemic, have brought these new normal good news for us. Decline in pollution, decline in current deficit, increase in the foreign reserves, changes in the technology, digitalization, having more time to spend with the families are some of these new normals. Let me take you to each one of it. See, what has happened is in last 4 months, in fact, on 11th March, WHO announced that this is considered as a pandemic and there's a need of taking efforts from the country to defeat the outbreak of this. So what countries did was countries started going for the lockdown, and which was considered as a standstill of all economic and other activities. Delhi air quality, because of this lockdown, have shown 55% decrease in the average pollution. There were no cars on the road, no companies were working, people were at home. So as a result of this standstill, air quality has improved so good that if you find there are very less respiratory diseases which are noted in the hospitals and in the medical list. Mumbai, which is also, we have always been saying that Mumbai never sleeps, Mumbai never stops. But because of this, Mumbai also was locked down, and there is a 29% decline in pollution happened even in Mumbai. This is one of the good points which tells us that probably because of stopping of human-induced activities, we may have a reversal of the climate change, which we never thought of having it before. I mean, given the ceteris paribus, nobody would actually even expect to stop this industrial policy and see whether there's a possibility of reverse of climate change, global warming or not. Now, this lockdown has given us that opportunity to see that in case if human activities are lesser, there are chances that we may have some improvement over that global warming situation which is prevailing. there is one additional good news which says that there's a current account surplus. You know, in the month of March, what we found was by 0.01, there was a current account surplus which was found. Now, in the history of Indian economy, for almost 15, 20 years, we've never found that there is a current account surplus. Now, today, what we found that this current account surplus have happened especially because trade was standstill, import exports was standstill, gold import was reduced because of this lockdown. Now, because gold, hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there was a phone call.
Yes, yes,
Also,
yes,
I
ma'am.
think, thank you. So, yeah. So, what has happened was the gold import was reduced. At the same time, the oil prices, if you would see, I have in the financial effect, I have shown that what has happened to the oil prices. The oil prices were low, and India is importing huge amount of oil, due to which we could save our money, and current account surplus was created in this. Though there was lot of diversion of expenditure which has happened to the health sector, the majority of the expenditure which was confined to the health sector only from the public sector. And I think that must be the reason of this. You know, what has happened was during the period, now of course, in the coming time, we will face huge amount of fiscal deficit which is going to increase. But of course, people are working towards it, and how to face that increasing fiscal deficit also will be checked. We've also found that foreign exchange reserves have increased by 1.3 billion. I mean, highest foreign exchange reserves were reported in the month of June, which was almost $534.5 billion. That is, addition was made by 11.9 billion in this week, which was ending. This was the first time. Now India has become 5th largest country in the world to have foreign exchange reserves of this. Above us, I think we have China, we have Japan. These are a few of the countries which we are having. Foreign currency assets, the largest component of Indian foreign exchange reserves was increased by 564 millions. Now imagine, because of this, the position of India was supposed to be a little stronger compared to the position what India would have gone through due to exceeding of, the speed of recession which we were going. But of course, I don't say that India's condition, the recovery position is much better because of this. This is one of the item which says that because of this, at least we have got some kind of good news here. India reserves position in International Monetary Fund is improved by USD 3 millions and to $4.3 billion during the week ended 26th June 2020, which is again showing a positive, a good news of this kind of thing. What happened is we never thought that we, in our regular life, we would have use of digitalization so much. We knew that the technology is going to change and technology is getting evolved and people are going to be more technology oriented people. But see, what has happened is because of this pandemic, people like you and me also have learned to listen to the people online, to speak with the people online. Even marriages are happening online. So digitalization is an unavoidable thing in this pandemic. Work from home infrastructure with which we require laptops, screens, connectivity. Now, this means that because of this, we have certain areas wherein we would find that there will be some expansion happening. There will be some generation of revenue and there will be some generation of employment opportunities going to happen. These are the areas, if you see, where there will be more and more jobs available for the next few months and years together. There will be requirement of collaborative tools, video conferencing, team chat, project planning. All this is happening only with the technology of digital. This is what is now considered as new normal. having a physical meet with others and having some kind of even lectures in the classrooms for educational purpose is not possible, at least for a few months from now. Schools are also working online. Students in the schools are given exams online. There is a possibility of having VPN network expansion. Mobile devices have become so important for everybody, right from the child to the senior citizens. I think for them, the most important factor in their life would be now mobile devices. Now, of course, because everything has become so digitalized, so much use of online structure will also brings the problem of security. So I am sure there would be more jobs created for those people who are anti-hackers. They will be anti-hackers. Now, these people would find kind of opportunities. This is called as blessings in disguise. So there will be possibility of opportunities created in this. There will be a new opportunity in terms of desktop support, which will be required for, I think, every organization, every institution, not only that, even for the residential purpose. Technology is not changed only for persons like you and me, but it is also changed for majority of the businesses. If you would find that there will be new business conduct which is happening, and the business which was originally dependent only on the physical structure, unless they cope up, unless they adopt the new style, there will be no possibility of survival. Some of the examples which says that this Blue Apron company was initially producing surgical cloths. Now, when they were producing surgical cloths, they had a different this. But initially they were only in textile. Now they are in the surgical cloths. But additional to that, what they have started is they have started with the meal kit supplier business. Now, because of which their stock prices have increased, and because of which the possibility of surviving in this kind of situation also has been better. Zoom stock prices, the meeting which we are doing right now, also has increased from $104 on March to 150 on March 30th. Imagine. So this is the kind of business which online industry is making. The crisis highlighted this digital divide, no doubt, but this digital divide have made not only in urban area more digitalized and more technologically savvy, but even the rural community is becoming more technologically savvy. And they are converted from divide of this, from deprived of this, to more dissemination with the kind of technology which we are using even in the urban areas. So this is what all of us have said. People say that we are at home, but that doesn't mean that we are not having good time. I mean, if you see the pictures, there are many people having good times. People, the right-hand side picture, which says that those migrated labor started moving from their workers' working place to their native place, especially because they also wanted to be with their family. They also wanted to be with the safe and secure with their family. Now, majority of the family time is spent by the people like husband and wife, who, if they are working, only in the offices. Right now, because there is a compulsory staying at home, children get time of their working parents. At the same time, senior citizens also get time to spend with their grandchildren, their children. So you are safe at home and you're not stuck at home. If we believe this, the new normal would become a little better for us. Now, this comes a new normal with the bad news. Now, why bad news is especially because it becomes difficult for conditions of many of the families, many of the communities, many of the societies and countries to face this pandemic. What has happened because of pandemic is loss of lives. I mean, if you see, I mean, I don't want to share the among numbers of deaths and all, because this is one of a very bad thing which every media is disclosing and getting people feeling more afraid, more scared of this. But this is a fact. Loss of lives are happening. The fatality rate is now decreasing to some extent, but every year, I mean, in the world right now, there are more than 7 lakhs deaths happen. global economy is affected, and this effect on global economy is as big as almost 8.1% of the global GDP. There's a reshuffling of global trade and politics. Now, of course, the geopolitics is a different world game altogether, but because of China bringing this particular virus in the world, there is always a politics behind the superpowers, and maybe this is one of the bio weapon which is of course not proved, but it is said that it is kind of a bio weapon which is introduced. So there's a lot of reshuffling of politics as well as in terms of global trade, because China was hub of majority of the electronic devices, majority of the factors of product, what I mean is the raw materials, and that is the reason why the trade will be completely reshuffled. Locking down, sealing of the borders also have been affecting on this Indian economy. We were expected to have 5 trillion economy sooner, but as a result of fighting this pandemic, we have gone much behind. Uncertain public health services, many of the country, including India, has seen that what kind of public expenditure which is happening on health services have got what is the level of efficiency of these public health services. There's a negative impact on industries, employment, and urban and rural economy. I'm going to say these bad news through economic lens by seeing that what has happened to the labor, what has happened to the finance, what has happened to the trade, health, the market contraction, and the life changes. Now, Vibhuti Madam have already spoken a lot about what is happening to the labor. Now, I will just give a very brief idea of what I wanted to say, that in the new normal, what will happen to the migrated labor. More than 3 lakhs of people who have migrated, 30% of them are supposed to come back. I mean, they have said to be coming back to their working places. Now, imagine what has happened is because they have left, there was uncertainty in those industries whether they will be continuing with the same speed or not. Now, when the people have come back, again, people are not very sure. The uncertainty is still existing, saying that whether industries will be started with the same speed. If they would be started with the same speed, what will be the stimulus which they are going to get and how are they going to use it? Because right now companies will have a lot of issues with availability of capital, availability of labors, availability of transportation facilities. Entire supply chain has got affected here. Mechanization is one of the idea which now MSME also is going for. It means that every work where there was a requirement of labor, at least when 10 laborers were required, now MSME is going to try to have maximum 2 or 3 laborers for that. So mechanization, robotization of the companies will have very bad impact on the employment and hence on the laborer. Agricultural sector also has got affected. First, because the people have migrated from urban areas to the rural areas where their natives were. So initially, the disguised unemployed agricultural sector suddenly found that there is huge pressure of more laborers to get accommodated in agricultural sector. Now fine, some of the laborers also got accommodated there, but at that time what happened was there was a need for sowing and other things. I mean, I'm talking about the month of May and June. But suppose if these laborers don't go back and they stay there, there would be more disguised unemployment faced by agricultural sector. Now, what is going to happen is main factor in laborers is in terms of the response across the ages. See, the changes which have happened are to be adopted by the people. Now, if people are not able to adopt this new skill set, people will be abandoned. People will be out of the jobs. Aged workers would have little more difficulties to get used to the new skill sets which are required. So unless they get used to the new skill sets, they will not be accommodated in the business or in the market anymore. So aged workers will face more employment. Now, gender issues, I think Madam has taken elaborately, but still what I found was, of course, I mean, in case of labor also there would be gender issue. As it is employment of women in majority of the economic, the paid services is lesser than that of men because of the patriarchal beliefs. But as a result, what is happening is if people are ready to do the jobs even from home, men are also ready to do the jobs. The jobs which initially women were getting to do it from home will also be transferred to the men. So women would also lose. Women will be the ultimate impact of losing of the jobs in such scenario. You see, this is what I feel. Now, if I want to say what is happening in the finance sector, if you see the table says that from January to August, these all areas, exchange rates were different. A lot of volatility was happening in exchange rate. If you see gold prices, from 41,000 has gone up to 53,000. Oil prices from 53, sometime in the month of March and April, it went negative. I mean, one of the day, I suppose it was 29th of March, where oil prices was minus 20. You see, so that means just to hold the oil, people were ready to pay the price in the world market. And this is all this I am talking about WT prices. You know, so what is happening is oil prices, BSE in Sensex index. If you see, the changes have happened. What is seen here is exchange rate, which has gone up from 71 to 74, will make India a little more vulnerable. Gold prices, people are holding gold for a longer period of time. This is only because people still believe that gold is the best investment without having any shocks, which is generally happening to the other type of investment. So oil prices also have been showing, I mean, India has actually benefited by reduction in the oil prices. India has purchased oil in the stock, and since we had not used that oil for the long, aviation was stopped, transport shipments were stopped, so that oil was not used, and that is why we right now have more surplus oil with us. But the ultimate thing is it went down, and now again it is increasing. It has come to $42. So as a result of which there is a problem going to happen in the financial sector. Payment deferrals, subdued loan growth, rising cases of bad loans are the issues with which the banks are going to get affected. And if bank, which is one of the pillar of the society, of the economy, if get affected, obviously it will get percolated to the other sectors too. So we will have to really be very careful in bringing back the financial sector back to the normal, for which, of course, a lot of stimulus package is also announced. 20 lakh crores of rupees are announced by our Honorable Finance Minister. But we will see how it is used in the future. Global trade is getting affected badly. 13 to 25% contraction is expected in the coming time. Now, 13% is an optimistic view. 25% is a pessimistic view. 13% is expected when the rate of growth in the world is expected to have 2.1% of growth, global GDP. But in a reality, we don't expect that the global growth rate would be somewhere like even 2.1%. And that is why we said that in case if the global growth rate of GDP is 1%, we will have 25% of contraction in the trade. As I said earlier, globalization, and because of lockdown, sealing of the borders of different countries, the result is the trade was completely trapped. And this trade, especially, I mean, you must have seen that in China has got more of export than that of import. So many countries are dependent on cheap raw materials from China, which completely stopped meanwhile. So as a result of which global trade has contracted. If you see the effect on the chemical sector is somewhere like $129 million. textile, $64 million. Automotive sector, electrical machinery, leather products. I mean, the list goes on, but I've just mentioned a few of them. So ultimately what is going to happen is the total global GDP size is going to get contracted at least by 10% of our global GDP. Then comes to the health sector. One of the sector which is overburdened is the health sector. Now, in this health sector, I have written this fatality rate as 4.8%, which was in the month of March. Right now, the fatality rate has come down to almost 2.8%. India is doing much better in terms of this, but in absolute terms, the figure is really big. So that is why one has to worry about this. Now, if you see the condition of India in this new normal is, generally, according to World Health Organization, the expected doctor patient ratio, expected bed patient ratio is mentioned. World average also says that doctor patient ratio should be 1:1,800. I'm talking about the public sector hospital doctors, those doctors who are appointed there. In India, the rate is much lower. One doctor to one. I'm sorry. I think this is. I have taken it ulta. In India, it is 1,800 patients for one doctor. In the world average, it is 1,000 patients, one doctor. Now, this has happened because if you see the next point wherein I have shown you the public expenditure spending on health is only 3.6%, which is lowest compared to. Now, I have given here only the developed countries. But even in BRICS, India is having the lowest public expenditure on health, 3.6%. We are expected to increase this public expenditure from 3.6% to at least 4%. At least I'm saying to 4% to cover up these kind of pandemic effects. India has already increased the funds to fight, granting 1.97 trillion of India COVID emergency fund. Now, family budget on health and hygiene also is changed. We never used to think of buying sanitizers bottles at home. We never thought of having, washing of the hands after every half an hour or 1 hour. So the requirement of hygienity and requirement of cleanliness and requirement of budget to be spent on the health in terms of many people are preparing kadas, many people are preparing, for boosting of the immunity system. A lot of expenditure is incurred on health right now, even in the families. Now, if you see the financial assistance compared, Japan is having maximum in terms of percent. But US is happening maximum expenditure in terms of absolute, though it is 13% of GDP. If you see India, this is hardly 6.4%, but India is not doing bad. India is much better than majority of the European countries which are giving this stimulus package. If you see France or if you see Spain, Italy, in absolute numbers, though their size of economy is bigger enough, but still the stimulus is not as proportionate as it is expected over there. Market is getting contracted. Now market, what I mean is the demand side of market as well as supply side of the market. The major economies will lose 2.4 to 3% of values of their gross domestic. Major economies implies the emerging economies mainly. So they are losing 2.4 to 3% values of their gross GDP. Entire economy is getting affected by at least 9 trillion. This is what was mentioned by IMF report, and which says that it's recession which was given before and recession which is rather hopefully the economy will not go into the depression which is actually entering here right now. So this is what is happening. Now let me come to the life-changing experience for common man. For a common man like you and me, what has happened is work from home is a very, very new normal for us. especially in terms of teaching, or especially in terms of education, or in terms of even majority of marketing. Nobody thought that work from home will be applicable and it will be so much useful. But this has happened, and we have got adopted to it, and you're doing it. In terms of personal hygiene, we will have to have a different kind of attitude to it. We cannot have shake hands with the people. We cannot hug the people. We cannot go into the social gatherings. It is only because we have to maintain the personal hygiene, which is definitely going to have impact on the psychological, mental health of the people. You know, human beings, humans are social animals. Now, when they are social animal, and if they are removed from the society, if they are separated from the society, obviously there would be some negative impact. But this is what is going to happen in the new normal. The entertainment, if you see, is completely changed now. You would not find those queues for the tickets in the cinemas, but you would have Netflix, you would have Amazon Prime, or you would have Z Star, so many Hotstar and whatnot. Now even pictures, cinemas are not launched as they were launched earlier. Now cinemas are also on OTTs. So there will be a very different kind of entertainment which we are going to expect in the new normal. Payment mechanism now is preferred only in terms of online, because we don't want to have any exchanges of so-called viruses through exchanges of notes and coins. So it is preferred to have the online payments. And these online payments, even in the rural areas now, people have started with this. The app like Beam or app like Phone Pay are existing even in the rural areas. Shopping is changed mostly from mall type of shopping to the online shopping. Groceries are available. I mean, earlier those Swiggies and Zomatos, which were available only for food delivery, now are also making deliveries of other types like groceries, provision, the regular items which we generally consume. So this is happening even in the normal life. Now, because of all these changes, what I have noted down is, in new normals, what are the new activities which we are going to encounter? My next slide speaks about these 21 activities which will be existing for the coming period of time while getting adopted to the new normal. The mail, simple thing like the post offices were there and post offices are there, postmen used to come. Now we prefer only emails. Now we prefer only the conference call. Now we prefer more of this. What is going to happen is doctors will be seen only when there's a lot of urgency. Vacations, not possible, at least in the near future. The haircuts in saloons were very, very difficult to have it in last 4 months. The small dinner party, no possible, not possible. High picnic outdoors, not possible. Kids going to the schools, to the camp, to the daycare, not possible. Work in the shared office, not possible. Co-working places, which are called as, which is the most upcoming type of business in the work. Send children to the play dates, not possible. Subway, bus, using of the public transportation, very difficult. Visiting elderly people, traveling by aeroplane, dinner outside, gym, which is not possible. I mean, nobody thought that we have to avoid going to gym just to remain healthy because we have to stay home and stay safe. Nobody thought that. But anyways, this will be a new normal. We cannot attend, even in wedding, government has given the norm saying that not more than 50 persons can be invited for wedding. For funeral, the norm says that we cannot have more than 10 persons for funeral. You see, so these are the new norms. No hugging, but it is only, greeting by folding hands, which we used to have in Indian culture before. Attend a church or any religious things, not possible. Stop routinely wearing of face covering, cannot be stopped. I mean, one has to wear this mask and attend the supporting events, concert, which is not possible. So ultimately what is going to happen is this will be new normal. I will explain this new normal in 3 words, which are very familiar to us, called SMS. S for distancing, M for mask, and last S for use of sanitizer. So we will have to have social distancing, masking, and sanitizer or sanitizer use for our health. So I think this new normal would be really, really necessary for everybody to get adopted, whether it is economy, in terms of world economy, whether it is India, or whether it is individual household or family economy. Thank you so much for listening to me so patiently, and thank you so much, Venkatesh College, to give me this opportunity to speak on this. I think this is it with my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. There are a few questions. So for this, I would like to request Dr. Pawan Kadam, sir, to please ask question. Please read out the question, sir.
Madam, there is one question from
Yes.
Santosh Patra. Is COVID-19 period suitable to invest in stock market?
Sorry, old 18?
Is COVID-19 period suitable to invest in stock market?
I think there will be a special webinar kept for this to answer this, because there are a lot of ups and downs which are happening. But right now, general theory says that when the market is down and if you have money, it is always better to make investment when the market is down. I think that suffices.
Thank you, madam. There is one another question, that is COVID-19 lead to a rise in the inflationary gap?
Of course, of course, of course. Inflation is going to happen. I mean, none of the public sector authority is mentioning about how much will be the inflation in the near course of time. But what is expected is the rate of inflation is definitely going to go up. Now only if you see the food prices are rising so much that they're going to pull the prices of other things. Transportation is very expensive. Supply chain is completely disrupt. So obviously the inflation will be higher, but nobody knows that to what extent the inflation is going to rise. Hello?
Thank you, madam. So we are waiting for some questions if there are. So participants are requested to put your question in the chat box.
Yeah, sure.
So okay, thank you, madam. I think there are
Yeah, in case if
questions.
there are more questions, you can email it
Yeah.
to me and I can answer the questions on email if you want.
Yes, madam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for enlightening us and for sharing valuable information about each and every aspect of economy and our present life also. I'm sure the knowledge you shared is going to be very beneficial to all the participants and all of us. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and enriching us. Now, before we are going to start the second session, again, I would like to request all the participants to put their questions in the chat box, and only few questions we are going to select because of time constraint. And the feedback form, you are also supposed to fill it without fail. So we are going to move towards our technical session 2. And for this, I would like to request Honorable Dr. Suchita Krishna Prasad ma'am to enlighten us on the topic Indian economy post-COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm going straight away to my screen.
Yes.
Yeah, can you see the screen?
No, not yet.
Just a minute. Yeah. Can it be seen now?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Just a minute. Bring it to the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, so to start with, let me just, just a minute. So to start with, thank you, Professor Gore and the college for thinking of me. It's a great opportunity to be sharing a platform with a veteran like Vibhuti Patel and a good friend like Medha Tapiawala. And it has been an enriching experience to listen to you, Vibhuti Madam, who is an expert in covering a very comprehensive ground in a very short time. And noting her words with passion, at the same time a balance. So it has been a wonderful session, and I think you have given us one picture, and Medha Madam has given us another picture. And in fact, between the two, a lot of paradoxes of the current situation are emerging. Okay, so let me, before I start with mine, let me just thank you for giving these insights, short insights. And let me use a few of them to begin my presentation. So, for example, when Vibhuti Madam explained what inequality is likely to come about, and there is a reportedly a very high incidence of hunger and poverty, and many people getting pushed below the poverty line because of unemployment and so on. And on the other hand, Medha Madam also told us about how the current account deficit has fallen and the fiscal situation and the foreign exchange reserves have increased. So you can immediately see the paradoxes, okay? So on the street, there is one picture of desolation and deprivation, and in the IMF and the fiscal account, there is another picture of perhaps, consolidation of finances. Maybe a few things can be read, even if I don't say about them, a few paradoxes can be immediately seen. With that, I start with mine presentation, and I think this is very beginning. So I'll just skip over and not cover too much, because probably we've heard too much, and they say too much of online exposure is also not good for health. So, right? So of course it came, and then it came into Hawaii and all that. What I would like to, of course, still talk about is the uncertainty, okay, the element of uncertainty. So all the epidemics that we saw yet so far, probably this is the most dynamic and the most uncertain kind of virus, because we spoke initially about who is more prone, okay. So people said that elderly people are more prone, and those who are already suffering from some kind of lifestyle diseases are more prone. And then we found that even the younger people are going, all right? So in fact, a few of elderly people came out of COVID quite safe, and younger people were going. So there is an uncertainty about, is it really attacking a selected target, okay? Then secondly, then we were saying that there are symptoms, there is headache, and there is nausea, and there is fever, and there's body ache, and all those things, and the taste of the mouth going bitter, and so on. And then suddenly we know that there are asymptomatic patients. So again, there is an uncertainty about that. So then came up the whole idea about preventive. Okay, so there are Ayurvedic things, and there are kadhas, and there are all kinds of concoctions, and that will increase our immunity. But then there were people who went into COVID even with all those preventives in order. Okay, and the last and the most uncertain thing is, can it relapse or can it not? So this is the next one, okay? Even if the inoculation comes, and even if, then the next question, of course, is, will it be affordable? Will the public expenditure system, public health system take care of those inoculations? Will that take too much of a time lag before it actually happens, and so on? So will the thing relapse? Right now, epidemiologists are saying that a person who is once hit with the COVID may be safe from the next infection, next COVID onslaught, only for 3 months. So the immunity that you develop may be valid for only 3 months. So These are all things that are coming up, and huge amount of uncertainty. And whenever there is uncertainty, there is fear. And talking about economics, whenever there is uncertainty and there's a mistrust, investment goes down. Let me just take another variable, okay? We are into an area where variable behavioral economics has become very powerful, and it is taking the global stage. So whenever there is uncertainty and there is fear and the lack of trust, investment is affected. So given all these things, that is unpredictability, all that we can do is trace, track, test, and treat. These are the 4 T's that WHO gave us right in the beginning in the month of February or March. Okay, and then finally, of course, therefore you have no other options. If you want to do all those things, no other options perhaps other than lockdown and social distancing. So both my earlier seniors have spoken about how the economy is going to go down, the world economy and Indian economy and so on. So ILO estimate says that in just 3 months of April to June, about 400 million full-time jobs have been lost. So we are not talking about part-time and online or other kinds of things. We are talking about full-time jobs which are being lost. Okay, this can have serious repercussions about all those who know about Indian labor market and the dichotomy between the formal and informal. There is a great chance that a large section of formal sector might now come into informal because the full-time jobs lost, assuming that a large number of them were in formal sector, there is going to be a greater growth in informal sector. Okay, so about 59% in Asia Pacific region itself. Now this is again an ILO estimate. About 59% of full-time jobs were wiped out in the same time, and so on. Again, the next thing is about South Asia. Both Vibhuti Patel madam and Medha madam spoke about supply chain disruption. Here's a small link which the slide shows. This particular link is a podcast that I found on the net, where in the McKinsey, that's a global consulting, multinational consulting firm, in which in a podcast in a room, they were actually advising people not to trade with India because one doesn't know when it will open. Okay, so withdrawal of orders are going to happen, and that's a very serious thing. And when the supply chain has disrupted, there are many stories. One can say they're anecdotal, okay? But one doesn't know if there are too many anecdotes, then it's a ground scene, okay? So farmers have been destroying their output because they cannot be sold, right from grapes to tomatoes and what have you, all right? So there is a drop in the growth rate. IMF chief Geeta Gopinath said that global GDP is going to get depressed by about 3%. And this would be the next big milestone after the Great Depression. Okay, so there are two observations that the migration that we have spoken about, the migrant workers and the reverse migrants. There are people who say that this is next biggest human tragedy after the partition, and world over it is being said that this is the next biggest drop in the global GDP after the recession. So what we are watching is not something which we can say, okay, it can be forgotten, it will correct itself. Okay, people who believe in market economy always believe in the robustness of market forces, and that market can correct itself. But this is going to take a little effort, and a conscious effort, and a planned effort. Right, this is what it looks like. Okay, so Indian economy is likely to contract by 4.5. This is the estimate about which Geeta Gopinath madam spoke the other day. And what we have is that there is a forced unemployment. Now, this is going to be a new concept in unemployment for us. Okay? We have open, we have seasonal, and we have fictional. We teach in economics various types of unemployment. So this is a new kind of unemployment where people want to go to work, but health reasons or security reasons prevent them to do so. So forced or forced unemployment is a term used by my very good friend, Professor Shyam Sundar. All right. So in this time, CMIE has come out with a report in the month of, I think, first week of May, and they calculated the unemployment that happened, and the report is titled Bleeding Jobs, right? So in which they said about 122 million workers lost their jobs, right? So yeah, then came, of course, the lockdown, and because we wanted to flatten the curve, I'll not take much time because all of us are aware of this. Okay, so we all wanted to flatten the curve. That means reduce the number of new infections and allow more people to come out and so on. But each time the lockdown got extended, you know, a curious thing, if you want to go check the data on the internet, you will find each next time the lockdown was announced, just one day before the last day of the announcement, the number of patients increased, infections increased. I don't think this was managed, but somehow the virus kept on cheating us. You know, this is what I mean, that it's a very uncertain phase. We think that 18 days and like Mahabharata, it is all going to be one, but it cheated us. It was smarter than us, maybe, all right? So, yeah, so then, right? So then, first of all, we of course cooperated, and then the second time the lockdown was extended, the mantra of stay home and stay safe was no longer true for about 10% of our population, which are migrant workers, all right? So because they did not have safe homes and they could not stay safe in that crowded areas that they were staying. And this is how we had a lot of migration. And this picture gives you major routes of migration, all of them. You can just look at the number of arrows which are coming to Orissa, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Of course, Uttar Pradesh had maximum reverse migrants coming in. And this particular slide is interesting because it says that 17 districts, just 17 districts, account for 25% of mail out migrations in the country. And imagine all of them returning on their own through illegal measures. And then finally, when the government decides to send them safely through railways, then the controversies about who's going to pay. So with all those hiccups and dynamics and things like that, in actions between the state and the center, between two states, we will not allow them to go, we will not allow them to come. And finally, some wisdom dawning, and we start saying that, okay, let them come back. So this is how, that has been one of the biggest human tragedies. As I said, some researchers note it as a bigger tragedy, next biggest tragedy after the partition that India suffered. This is an interesting slide. It is an analysis given by a multinational consultant, again, Arthur D. Little consultant. And here, what you see is they have analyzed the impact on every sector based on labor availability, that's the first parameter, demand impact, that's the second parameter, financial health, and supply disruption. What I like about this way of analyzing is, see, we always talk of two factors of production, labor and capital. So labor availability and financial health. So two factors of production are covered, and two things in the market, demand and supply. All right. So this particular analysis I really feel is worth looking into. What it says is that if you are in red, then all those parameters are bad. Okay. So they have studied everything from agriculture and mining and food and so on to engineering and construction and railways, roads, aviation, hotel industry, and finally to services like health, education, and so on. Okay. And what we see here, see, we can just look at these textiles. See, I just want to focus on those sectors which have all five red. Okay, all five red. Labor availability, demand impact, financial health, supply disruption, and peak impact. That means when COVID was at peak, what was the impact? So all five are red. Which are those industries? Textile and apparel. Remember, this is a labor-intensive industry. This is a labor-intensive industry. So one, metal and fabricated products, automotive, and remember, automotives went into recession far before, much before COVID, right? And then other manufacturing, construction, yeah, tourism and hospitality. We know nobody can go into hotels without, risking your life. Aviation, of course, is totally stopped. Okay. So if we come to agriculture, there is a problem, finance. Okay. Labor availability is there. Demand impact not bad because it is considered as an essential service, but if the supply chain is wrecked, okay, they still cannot reach. All right. So supply disruption is there and so on. So I'm going to share this PowerPoint with Jyoti Dhokle, Madam, and Gore Sir. And I think those who want to learn and feel like exploring more will probably be able to do so. Right. So I'll move on to the next one. Next two slides are now about, okay, we speak about COVID and how it has impacted. Where were we before COVID? If we were in a strong fiscal and monetary position, a good economy, a stable society before COVID, then probably we were in a position to handle this new pandemic, the new disaster, better. But the problem is that even before COVID, we all know that we were into a slowdown. Okay, we were not ready to call it slowdown for a long time. Okay, till it really hit us, till the automobile industry lobby went and spoke that this is bad and you have to do something. But if I look at the first panel of this slide, shows the data which is presented by RBI in its annual report, and it says just look at every parameter, just look at every macroeconomic parameter. Final consumption, government, private final consumption, government final consumption, gross fixed capital formation, exports and imports, and GDP. Everywhere there is a fall. So 7.3 to 3.1. And if private consumption falls, it's a major dig at the economy, because our economy, GDP, about 58 to 60% comes from consumption expenditure. So if that becomes half, nearly more than half, from 7.3 to 3.1, if it comes, then there are sure signs of recession. The only thing that is increasing is the government final expenditure. It could be because of interest payments and other unproductive expenditure. I will not go into that. So look at every macroeconomic indicator, and the result of that you can find here. This is a graph I found in Azim Premji paper produced by Professor Jayati Ghosh. So this is very clear how it is going. Yeah. So if before COVID we were strong, perhaps we would have been in a position, the economy and the society was having enough strength to perhaps fight and take care of and absorb and rise above. Okay. So, right. So what was the reason why economy was in bad shape? Two or three major internal reasons were two. One was the demonetization, which reduced about 5 million jobs. And here is a reference to that. There are many who refer to that. This is only one representative link that put, but there are many people who have attributed a large-scale unemployment, especially in MSME and in informal sector, to demonetization. Then the GST came in the next year, and that confused the MSME sector further, requiring a heavy expenditure in infrastructure, logistical investment, and so on. So these two things, and then these are internal reasons. Number one, demonetization. Number two, difficulty in implementing the GST. And the external reason, of course, was US-China war, which created a huge turbulence in the trade scene. And the value of rupee started fluctuating greatly after the US-China war became trade war rather. I'm sorry, I should not say US-China war, it's a trade war. And once that came into force, things became even more difficult for India. And then there is a fall in demand. So basically, around this time, I'm talking about now, let's say 2018, 19, and the entire period, a few years before that, gradually the FMCG demand, fast-moving consumer goods sector demand, had started falling. And I remember having read a few reports in the newspaper where the glucose biscuit demand had also gone. Parle glucose biscuit. So not only just the automobiles were not being sold, or not only that the two-wheelers are not being sold, but even as basic as toothpaste and glucose biscuit sale has dropped down. It was a serious situation that we were in. Now, in this, the entire population faces a new threat of health hazard. Okay, in this, population faces a new thing called a health hazard because of COVID. And my observation here, or rather my thought to kind of share with you here, is that the sector that got affected because of demonetization and was the same as the sector that was hit harder because of GST, and was the same sector that got hit harder because migrants were not allowed to go, or migrants went in a very difficult position. Okay, so this is one position that I wish to just throw it open to the people, that it's the same sector, either directly or indirectly, coming under attack. Without any intentions, maybe, but it's the same sector that comes under attack. And so this is the last sentence of this slide, that it might have been the same section of population that might have borne the impact or the incidence, right? So impact is something that impacts you immediately because there is no cash, so you're down, all right? But incidence means your MSME employer cannot run because, of COVID, and therefore you're escaped. So that's the incidence. So, yeah. So now here I'm summing up all the challenges. So there are losses to all the commercial units, shops to industries, okay? Shops to all manufacturing. I think sectoral impact that I showed in that earlier slide, which was produced by Arthur D. Little Company, it speaks enough, right? But just talking about shops, food retail industry, I found that about 90,000 crores of rupees was the loss to just the food retail industry. Unemployment has increased. Of course, now it's supposed to be green shoots with Manrega coming in, and the agriculture season being good, and so sowing and the rest of the agricultural activity has started. But there are people like Santosh Mehrotra. Okay, Santosh Mehrotra says that about 60 million people have applied for Manrega in the month of June itself. In 1 month of June, 60 million people have applied for Manrega. So he's saying it's not green shoots. Okay, it's trying to fight and live. Keep your body and soul together. All right. So time to become little complex, and it's not the time to become complex. So there is a poor demand, especially of discretionary type. So discretionary means comfort and luxury demand may have gone down. Okay. And of course, on social media now we learn how to grow tomatoes in your own kitchen garden, how to start producing your, adrak in your own garden and all those things. So we are concentrating now on good and healthy food, which is of course a good idea, but the discretionary type of demand has fallen down. Supply chain has been obliterated. No point in discussing this again and again. Every industry, from all those industries which we saw in all 5 reds, like construction or like textile and apparel, all of them depend heavily on supply chain. So all those industries which were like all 5 red in my earlier slide, they're all heavily dependent on supply chain. So when the supply chain doesn't function, or that gets obliterated or gets broken down badly, then there is a problem. Then of course is the banking sector. Medha madam also spoke about the problems of the banking sector and the pressure that they have to bear of unpaid loans. All right. So again, now I'm not going into who created that situation, right? Vibhuti Patel, madam, have to say, how the big industries what the big industries have done, and whether is it only the small farmers who are looting the banks. Of course, that is for the later to say. But currently, just to summarize the macro situation, banks are also in the process of pressure of bad loans, and now of course there is a demand, and there might be an added stress because of moratorium. The loan facilities. Okay, so in Atmanirbhar and the rest of the schemes that were announced, loans were supposed to be disbursed, yeah, as a relief package. Now, of course, there can be a question whether loan can be a relief package. That can be an ideological question, all right? But even if you give loans, who will take the loan? So there are 2 constraints in loan disbursement. One, the bank may not be wanting to give loans because there's already enough bad loans. That is one. Secondly, who's going to take the loan if there is no demand? Eventually, monetary policy may not be very successful when there is a real goods sector problem. Okay, when there's a real sector problem, I mean, this is ancient wisdom, right from Keynesian times, that monetary policy will be relatively weaker compared to fiscal policy when there is a real sector problem. So that is, so what are the steps taken so far? So steps taken so far, of course, is that about 10% over a period. Yesterday, Honorable Prime Minister announced another relief package and another helping hand to the farmers and so on. So far, about 10% of GDP has to go. But again, this is a observation made by Santosh Mehrotra, economist from Delhi, who says about 90% of this package is in the form of liquidity for the banks and the bank guarantees. Just 1% of that, of the GDP, is in the form of fiscal stimulus. No more than 2,06,000 crores, which includes Garib Kalyan Yojana and so on. So various packages so far have focused on the supply side. That means we give you loans, you increase the supply. But why will I increase the supply? There's no demand. All right. So there has to be a balanced approach. This is what even Mehrotra says. I'm referring to Mehrotra again and again because it's a recent book and I found it extremely stimulating. I recommend this book to anybody who's interested. It's titled Revival of Jobs. Okay. Revival of Jobs, a strategy for economic growth. All right. And it is a third book in the series of India Reinventing or something. Okay. This makes an immensely interesting reading. I got to read a preview of that book in which Professor Mehrotra introduces a term called poverty elasticity of growth. An idea which is very close to what Amartya Sen would like growth to be, growth which is just and growth which reduces poverty. So anyway, I don't want to sound as if I am producing a commercial for that book, all right? But at the same time, all those who are interested may certainly take a look at it. All right, so various packages are focused on supply side and
And your voice is not.
I think her internet got stuck.
Is it okay?
Yeah. Audio.
I'll hold it here. So yeah, so various packages.
Madam, voice is not audible. I think your internet is not stable.
Maybe sir, internet slow.
Yeah.
I think now it is visible.
Okay. Just a minute. Let me go back to my PPT. Is it seen? Can it be seen?
No, madam, no yet.
Oh. Can it be seen now?
No, madam.
Just a minute, huh? Just a minute, sir. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sharing screen again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Visible?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah, now visible.
So much. Thank you so much. So I can take a few minutes.
Yes.
Yes, madam.
So coming to opportunities. So so long I just spoke about the kind of.
Please start full screen presentation.
Yeah, I'm coming to the presentation. Yeah, so the opportunities that lie ahead, okay, the opportunities that lie ahead are the crisis that is opening up, that might open up new possibilities, like facilitate urban and rural balance. Okay, so far we have been talking about urban-rural imbalance. So there is a possibility that now we can look at rural infrastructure and rejuvenating and restarting the agro-based industries, which will increase employment in the rural sector and facilitate a better technology of housing, transportation, and so on, greater use of electric cars, and technology for living and mobility, which will use less of non-renewable resources. These are the opportunities that we have right now. Okay, so this can be done, and if it can be done, why am I saying this? Is because there are experiences in Korea and other countries, even in US, during recession, when they shifted from traditional technology to environmentally safe technology, the employment in fact increased exponentially. So these are employment generating technologies. Why? Because they are new, and therefore they will require more people to be engaged in them. So first of all, in the long-term survival, they are going to be good. And even in short-term, they are going to be good because they will allow us to employ more people. So promote green technology and provide social protection. I will just take, these are the points that I want to kind of raise in the future, a few slides that are coming up here. So we have 66 million people living in India in slums. Okay, a working group of migration constituted by Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty. Government can take a look at their recommendations now, and this is the time when it can recalibrate itself regarding the urban housing policies. The cities in India have become congested, and since the migrants have already left, okay, of course, 30% might come back and so on, but new migrants may not come very immediately, okay, because of the threat and so on. So there is a likelihood that we may be able to create better housing. This is it can be viewed as an opportunity to create better housing. Okay, so so basically it is important that out of farm, the non-farm sectors such as plantation, horticulture, fishing, and MSME of course is a sector which has been hit hard, as I said, in the last few years because of certain policies. We need to look at them because they are very labor intensive in nature generally. Okay, so next thing is building resilience. If 93% of Indian workforce is informally unemployed and large number of people are in gig economy, this population becomes extremely vulnerable when there are economic shocks, and it needs a greater access to formal credit and social safety nets, such as insurance and pension schemes and so on. So there is a talk now about universal basic income. One doesn't know how many strides we can take towards that given the fiscal situation. But more important than these two, which are not in the hands of, let's say, union workers or so on, the last one is about building the data bank of migrant workers. Okay, building the data bank of migrant workers. Okay, so in an article which was published, an article of mine which was published in Yojana in June, which I began trying to submit it to various people in the month of March itself, rather April, when the first batch of migrants had started going out. In that article, I had suggested that when the migrants go out, they need the health clearance from the hospitals. Okay, so if the hospitals were to maintain a small form of where you came from, what is your education, what is your income, are you going to come back? They may say no, they may say yes, whatever it is. But if that information was collected at that point of time, and it was not difficult because migrants needed that certificate very direly in order to move out. Of course, there were many who simply went on street and so on. That cannot be recorded. But hospitals were some points where, there was a formal kind of table where this data could have been collected. So one little form, if that was filled and it could be compiled at the Labor Commissioner's office, probably that would have been one way of collecting the data. Okay. Then coming to data bank of migrant workers, So why is this necessary? It is necessary to empower migrant workers because after all, they are 10% of your people. Okay, 1 in 10 people is a migrant worker. and therefore classify that pool. Of course, UP government and Bihar and some other states do that. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So it is possible. Now, this is again something that I suggested in that paper, that see, all these people have moved together and they have come into a one state or two states mainly. It is possible to bring them together on the basis of their common skills and possible to organize them together in a form of a cooperative. Why I'm saying that, it's not out of the blue that I'm saying. ILO has hand-holded many migrant workers in Indonesia and who were hit by tsunami, and brought them together and formed very successful workers cooperatives there. So this is one option that we have. Okay, the state governments or the central government or even the central trade union workers can prepare some proposals and approach ILO and do some kind of work on this ground. Okay, and basically that is essential because, see, all people who have traveled together with the same level of hopelessness, when they come together, they can build a lot of hope. Okay, why do I say that? Is there in the next slide. Only yesterday I happened to see this on BBC, that the Black movement is a case of this kind. Okay, in USA and UK, Give Back Black and Take Black movement has started progressing. So Black enterprises, Black people are supporting, Black people are supplying, and they are very proud that they are able to revive themselves economically. All right. So this was a very interesting documentary I saw yesterday on BBC, and I thought I must include this here. Right. So it's not something that only ILO can do. Again, okay, it's not something that an international organization needs to come and help. If we all can build that network, it is not impossible. And building network again in this time of social media is not difficult. Imagine none of us are in Buldana right now, and we are still on a Buldana webinar. So it is not impossible. We can use this social media platform. So all those who are disenfranchised can find a new way of building a voice and becoming economically strong. Another important opportunity that this gives, as Medha madam said, that we are not going into weddings have become small. That's a great thing. Okay, if huge amount of money was going, and again, I'm sorry, I'm quoting the same person again, Santosh Mehrotra. He says huge, next to dowry. Next to, so ill health and the dowry is one important thing that pushes family below the poverty line in certain belts of India. So if weddings have become small, very welcome thing, right? So again, we are all becoming conscious of not wanting to just keep on gulping the pills, but build our immunity, okay? So immunity building, a very important thing, something that Ayurveda has been saying for a long time, all right? So we are not going to gyms, but look at the number of videos that you see on Facebook on how people are exercising at home. So these are all interesting and educated things that are changing the behavior of people. Okay, so this can become like, we can nudge people into let's say giving up fast food and going for healthier food and so on. All right, so electricity. If electricity has to be used and more vehicles of using electricity as a fuel have to come up on the road, shift from, let's say, private transport to public transport, which is healthy, all right, or shift from diesel or oil run cars to, let's say, electricity, then we need to build an infrastructure where batteries can be charged all over, right? So just as we have petrol pumps around the corners, around the street corners and on the highways, we need to build that. And imagine if we take that up, imagine the amount of unemployment that will increase as a result of that. Okay, so right. So going to the nudge behavior. Now I briefly take a look at certain sectors which are going to come out as important sectors. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, Chairperson and Managing Director of Biocon, is saying that India is already the pharmacy of the world. Health sector and pharmaceuticals of India is going to be one sector which he says is going to be the next IT sector for India. So in the 90s, if we were pulled out of a bad patch in terms of economic growth, if it was because of IT and Microsoft and the like, Wipros and so on, it is going to be pharmaceutical sector now. So when you fall ill, what do you need? Good medicine. So naturally, pharmaceutical industries are going to go up. We have the advantage of huge pool of knowledge through Ayurveda. So if those medicines come out into the mainstream pharmaceuticals, imagine this is going to be a big chance that India has to help the world, not just itself, but help the world, right? So, and also talking about the COVID warriors and so on, which Medha madam spoke about the lack of medical personnel, and Vibhuti madam spoke about ASHA workers and so on. These are the workers who have minimum protection, huge population to look after, and yet they have done a phenomenal job. In fact, Indian surgeons are respected all over the world. We know of people who come for important organ surgeries to India. So this can be a sector which can lead. Okay, then there is a viral benefit. We have Serum Institute of India in Pune, which might come up with a better breakthrough and so on. And if that happens, India will have a chance. Let us not compete with China and this and that. No, whatever we have, we can certainly come up with that. Other sectors to look forward. One, of course, pharmaceuticals. And then we have FMCG. Why do I say FMCG? If it is so dependent on supply chains and the supply chains have disrupted, why do I say FMCG? Because an important component of FMCG is a hand wash and sanitizer and all the hygiene products. So there has been a huge demand in this. So maybe shampoos have become less or whatever, but the hygiene products are greatly in demand. All right. And so that is an important thing. Gold dependent economies, because people don't want to now invest in real estate. They don't want to invest now in stocks. Sorry, Medha madam, to take one of your questions. So people are now wanting to invest in gold bonds. So these are the companies like Muthoot and other many Kotak and whatever, all right, which are going to probably see better days, all right. Then there is media and entertainment. This industry will always thrive, especially if you're alone and you're getting bored. You will look at media, you will look at entertainment, whatever kind of entertainment. And Professor Medha just now said, it's not going to be theaters, it's not going to be watching together and so on. But doesn't matter, entertainment will always remain, hunger for entertainment will never die, right? So we have an opportunity to think about how to support all these sectors, all right? So only day before yesterday, I had a webinar with Ambedkar Institute of Labor Studies, in which I suggested that the trade union activists look at these sectors as sectors where they will have to unionize, because these are going to grow. And if they are going to grow, their demand is going to grow, then if you unionize there, you will have a stronger chance of surviving for a longer time period. Coming to a last word now. This is how I used to approach growth models in my class. Every economic growth model tries to answer 4 questions. Right from Adam Smith to Ricardo to Marx, Schumpeter, anybody. How does the growth start? How is it sustained? Are there any limits to growth? And can this limit be pushed ahead or postponed? So look at any growth model. It is answering only these 4 questions. Is it agriculture? Is it manufacturing, etc.? Now let me not go into growth models, because this is not an economic growth class. But we can rephrase these questions now and say, if growth is like a revival is like economic growth, then the same 4 questions get rephrased. How does the revival start? How is the revival sustained? Is there a natural limit to revival? And can this limit to natural revival be postponed? All right. So the first thing is, how does the revival start? Look at the rising industries. Once again, FMCG, pharmaceuticals, and so on, right? Then, but also note that the growth cannot be sustained if 90% of population remains hungry and poor. If 90% of population remains in a vulnerable situation, then growth cannot be sustained. Market size normal, Smithian kind of doctrine will be that the market size is a limit to growth. I'm coming to answering the third question. What is the limit? In growth, we say limit is the market size. But what I'm saying later is that the market size itself depends on growth of employment. Because when employment increases, income increases, and people start demanding and the market expands. So even if you say that everything depends on and as long as the markets are robust, everything is fine. So markets cannot be robust if the employment is not growing. And so we need to go at this particular thing, increase jobs. So either increase jobs through government sector, public sector, or go in a cooperative mode where several millions of helpless workers form clusters. Okay, this can be done. Clusters can be formed and cooperate on a cooperative mode. People can begin to research and reinvent their own talents and abilities to work. So these are some useful links, and I hope I have not taken too much time. Yeah, in fact, I wanted to talk also about the second link here, which is about Pratham, Mumbai. Okay, Pratham is an NGO, and they are basically involved in educating deprived children through clouds. Okay, but now they have taken up this work of digitizing migrants who have returned back to the place of work, digitizing their data and trying to find out who wants to upskill, who wants to increase their skills. So these are not impossible things to do. So a little bit of vision and collective action can convert a crisis into opportunity. So thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you once again for allowing me to share a platform with someone as veteran and experienced as Vibhuti Patel Madam and my good friend Medha Tapiawala. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. There are a few questions. I would request Pawan sir to please read the question.
Madam, there are some questions. First is the impact of COVID-19 on employment and their families. From Dinkar Kalambi.
Who is going to take this? Who is it addressed to?
Yeah, madam, you. This call. Suchita, na? Yes, sorry. Suchita, madam. Yeah, please unmute yourself, madam. Suchita, madam. You are not audible. Yeah.
So I think in my presentation, I made a reference to a report in the first week of May given by CMIE, which says that the unemployment percentage has increased and about over 100 million people are unemployed, and that's a forced unemployment, as we said. And of course, now the unemployment has again come down. It has come down to roughly previous level, something like 8% of unemployment. And therefore they say these are green shoots. Okay, so economy is again going back to green shoots there and so on. So unemployment is again looking better. But at the same time, as I said during my presentation, if 60 million people are registering for Manrega, okay, it still means that there is a dependence on a certain scheme to get jobs, which means they were unemployed and they want to find jobs. So unemployment seen in terms of percentage may be looking better, but if they are getting protection only because of certain schemes, then it may not be sustainable. That's what I see. Maybe Vibhuti madam, would you? Okay.
Yes, thank you, madam. There is one question again, that is regarding the GDP of the next year, and is the amalgamation of banks affects the economy? Shall I repeat again?
Please.
There is one question regarding the GDP of next year, and is the amalgamation of banks affects the economy?
GDP next year, I think the pandemic will decide what the GDP will be. Okay. we know how uncertain everything is. Okay, and there are many study reviews which say amalgamation may make the balance sheets better. It may make the balance sheets better. All right, but the ground realities of how to recover the bad loans. And if you just say that infuse more funds to the banks, it is not going to, so in economics, we talk about adverse selections, and moral hazard. So some people who don't give loans back may be really badly off and they cannot give the loans back. And some people who don't give the loans back are in a position to cheat. Right? So if both are treated equally, then probably it is not a very strong decision making, not a very strong governance. Yeah. I hope I've answered that.
And
Yes,
concentration of
ma'am.
economic power without transparency is also a problem, because financial sector is so predatory, whether it is in rural area or urban area. We have seen all the big scams in the recent times. And it is at the top level where the small petty corruption takes place, we make a hue and cry. But when it happens at the top level, which is in the billions of dollars and all, and I think experience of 2008 to 2020, I think last 12 years have shown that it is at the top where the concentration and lack of transparency plays the havoc, not only with the economy, but also with the human miseries that it creates.
Madam, there is one question from Sefali Pradhan. Is there any change in the socio-economic status of women due to pandemic?
I think Vibhuti madam can start and then I will follow it because she has a massive experience on gender.
So I think the socio-economic status, as I told you, that all the existing inequalities, injustices, exclusion and marginalization has compounded during this pandemic. Analysis done by the UN Women of 182 countries have also shown that on 5 counts, women have suffered the most. Number one is because of the increasing workload. The data provided by economists, I think the recent special number on COVID-19 also, of economists also shows that 60% of the women have lost out their jobs. So their job loss among the working class, globally as well as in India, it is more women who have lost out their job. And even in the post-COVID-19 scenario also, they will be the last to be hired. So I think we have turned the wheel of history. So many economists are saying that we have turned the wheel of history 150 years behind. So the kind of crisis we had faced in the 19th and 20th century, when there was economic downturn, the same scenario has been repeated. So that is the first very important, is a job loss. Secondly, the stress level due to the multitasking, adult care, personal care, and elderly care, and care of the sick, because COVID public health system cannot manage to look after so many unwell people. So that also falls on women. So the stress level and the mental health issues have also increased. Third one is when man is stressed, he takes out the frustration on women and children. So the violence, gender-based violence, they have also increased. In the earlier context, in a non-COVID context, when the violence took place, women could seek help of the criminal justice system, of the neighbors. They could run away from the proximity of the abuser, which is not happening. You are in the midst, in the lockdown. Even when your chances of abuse have increased, you are in the proximity. You are very close to the abuser. So that is a third very important thing. Fourth one is the reproductive health care. So many unwanted pregnancies. Just in India, the data with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has provided, because lack of contraception that has taken place. Reproductive morbidity has increased because sanitary pads, it's NGOs which are distributing sanitary pads, because it was not considered as an essential service. So both the production of sanitary pads and distribution of sanitary pads had just stopped during those 4 months, not only in India, everywhere. So reproductive health issue, that is a very important, so the reproductive morbidity, increase in maternal deaths, increase in the neonatal deaths, and increase in the postpartum health of women. So that is a fourth very important dimension, which even WHO has said that this thing. And fifth one is nutrition, because generally women eat last, least, and leftover. So that's why the nutrition of women have suffered the most. Earlier, most of the developing countries had a midday meal program. During the lockdown, midday meals have stopped. When the schools closed, children were deprived of midday meal. So they also started demanding food from home. Okay. Earlier, that was taken care of. That afternoon meal they will get in the school. Now that is there. So when in the midst of scarcity and in the midst of high food inflation, it is women who suffer the most. So that is so. These are the 5 important differential impacts that we have seen under the coronavirus, and there are rapid need assessment studies have also shown that we have to consider reproductive health service as an essential service. We have to start community kitchens on a long-term basis, both in the rural and urban area. Just 50 kilometers away from Mumbai, there are starvation deaths happening currently because the PDS has not reached due to lockdown. So there are so many. UNICEF has brought out a lot of data about what is happening in the tribal hamlets, and none of the forest produce which they have collected, they are able to sell. So they neither have cash nor not PDS. So I think strengthening of PDS and running the community kitchen, because even when you give dry ration, people are hungry because fuel is is a problem. Safe drinking water is a problem. So when you have community kitchen, local self-government bodies and involvement of panchayat institution, I think it's very important, both in the rural and urban areas, involvement of Gram Sabha, district councils, municipal councils and municipal corporations, all the elected representatives, and now 18 states have a 50% women elected representatives. So states like Maharashtra, we have all women panchayat. So I think if we have people's participation, then whatever money that has been allocated through Atmanirbhar Bharat, through Garib Kalyan Yojana, and the packages which are given to MG Narega will be judiciously used. So you have a finance, but it should not be just parked in the ministry, but this finance funds should have a functions, very clarity about the functions based on the evidences at the grassroots level, and also functionaries. So who are these functionaries? Asha workers, Anganwadi workers, school teachers of the government schools, and also the sanitation workers. All these workers and the community organizations and elected representatives, if we combine together, then we can address these issues effectively.
Thank you, madam. Due to the time constraints, we are not able to take all the questions. So, ma'am, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the information you shared about the problems, challenges we all are facing. In spite of the problem which we are facing, you also told us how we can be optimistic, as there are opportunities too. So I would like to thank once again to you, ma'am, for sharing valuable, useful information. And I'm sure these words of wisdom are going to benefit all of us. Now, after this, I would like to request Honorable Dr. Sudhir Chauhan, sir, to deliver his presidential address, who is the coordinator of IQAC and head of Department of English of Venkatesh College. Respected sir, please.
Good afternoon to honorable dignitaries and all participants in this national level webinar on Indian economy after post-COVID-19 challenges and opportunities, organized by the Department of Economics and IQC in Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce, Science College, Devulgaraja. Reverend keynote speaker of this national level webinar, Honorable Dr. Vibhuti Patel ma'am, respected resource person, Honorable Dr. Medha Tapiola ma'am, Honorable Dr. Suchita Krishna Prasad ma'am, the coordinator of this webinar, Dr. D.V. Gores, the head Department of Economics, the anchor of this webinar, Dr. J.D. Dhokde, the head of the technical support team, Sri P.M. Kadam sir, and his colleagues. I cannot stop myself saying that we are greatly honored by the participation and affirmation and guidance and deliberations of these eminent and renowned speakers in this national webinar on this topic. The trio have suggested that the Indian economy has certainly been disturbed, but the show must go on. And how the show will go on have been suggested by the trio, that what we can do to improve our economy. In fact, they have created a ray of hope in the minds of every Indian citizens after COVID-19 pandemic period will be over. Because certainly we are disturbed as far as our economy is concerned. I must say that we are actually overwhelmed to listen to such stalwarts in the field of economics and Indian economy with their valuable views and useful suggestions in the said topic, in the topic of this webinar. I'm also very much pleased to announce that there were a large number of viewers in this webinar, and they have put very positive and satisfactory remarks in their chat box with respect to this webinar. And I must say that their such comments, their such remarks is the success of this webinar. I'm sure the deliberations in this webinar would certainly help to improve the Indian economy and help us to face the challenges as well as to grab the opportunities in the near future. I'm sure that all these views would definitely help us to improve our economy in a very short period. Last but not the least, I express my deep sense of gratitude to all these stalwarts, to all these renowned speakers on the said topic. And I hope that if we need such kind of cooperation in future, definitely we will get the same cooperation from such stalwarts with respect to such kinds of events to be organized in our college. Again, on behalf of college, on behalf of IQC, on behalf of the economics department, I extend my sincere thanks to all of you, madam. And with these remarks, I conclude my presidential talk. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, before going to the furthest thing, I would like to request all the participants to please fill their feedback form as it is mandatory. Feedback form will be provided on the Telegram group and it will be active till 10 p.m. today. Now I would like to request Dr. Gnaneshwar Gore, sir, to express words of gratitude. Please, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute करो. ये तो है. Unmute है. Okay. Hello. Okay. A very good afternoon to our most valued guests, delegates, worthy teachers, and organizing committee of this one-day national webinar titled Indian Economy Post-COVID. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. A very good afternoon to our most valued guests, delegates, worthy teachers, and organizing committee of this one-day national webinar titled Indian Economy Post-COVID-19 Pandemic. Okay. Indian Economy Post-COVID-19 Pandemic Challenges and Opportunities, organized by the Department of Economics and Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Sri Venkatesh Arts, Commerce and Science College, Deolgaon Raja, District Buldana. I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude and propose vote of thanks on this auspicious occasion. As a coordinator of this one-day national webinar, myself, Dr. Gnaneshwar Gore, on behalf of our college and entire fraternity of the college, first of all, extend my most sincere thanks to the chief guests and resource persons who spared time from their busy schedule to grace the occasion. First of all, I would like to propose hearty vote of thanks to our keynote speaker, Honorable Dr. Vibhuti Patel ma'am, former professor, Advanced Center for Women Studies, School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, for gracing today's webinar. Thank you, ma'am, for your very interesting and thoughtful provoke. I extend my most sincere thanks to the resource person of first technical session of this webinar, Honorable Dr. Medha Tapiawala ma'am, Professor, Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, University of Mumbai, for making excellent presentations. It was very interesting, informative and useful session for us. I would like to thank our most distinguished resource person of the second technical session, Honorable Dr. Suchita Krishna Prasad ma'am, retired professor and head Department of Economics, Elphinstone College, Mumbai, for sharing with us your opinion and making this webinar interesting and meaningful. Further, a big thank you to the chairperson of this webinar, Honorable Dr. Sudhir Chauhan sir, head of the Department of English in this college, for their presidential address and encouragement. I would like to propose a hearty vote of thanks to all the delegates and students who have joined this webinar, not only from all states of the country, but also from abroad also, to grace this one-day national webinar. Last but not least, I express my special thanks to all my senior faculty members and colleagues for their support and cooperation. Without their encouragement, cooperation and care, the successful organization of this event or webinar wouldn't have been possible. With due permission of Honorable Chairperson, I hereby declare that this webinar is over. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you all the participants. Thank you.